Hey, good morning. Oh, hey, Woman Developed, how are you doing today? I pray that your day is going well. Thank you for taking the time to click on this video. I just want to give a recap of our Woman Developed Empowerment Conference this past Saturday. We had a phenomenal time. Women, they came out, they left empowered. Again, as I spoke about our three dynamic speakers, we had Pastor Lisette Rodriguez of Hope Worship Center. We also had Professor Rashida Cruz of Monmouth University. And then you had myself, Pastor Annette Ramos from New Destiny Worship Center. And I tell you, it was mind blowing. We had a phenomenal time. And I'm not just saying that because, I'm the founder of Women Developed, but I am truly elated by everything that took place in the process of the conference. I tell you, just the women coming together, fellowshipping. We had a great time. You may see the videos that are circulating with Pastor Lisette as well as with myself. It really doesn't do any justice with the energy that was in the room and just the connectivity. It was a small, intimate crowd, but guess what? We were able to receive what it was that we came out to receive. So I just want to give a little recap about what took place as far as, what the speakers had spoke about. But guess what? We're going to be having another one. We're going to be doing empowerment conferences like this more than one time a year, because I believe that it is so important that we continue to develop and that we continue to grow and evolve in what God has called us to do. Pastor Lisette, she started off with, we may come in as caterpillars, but we're going to leave as butterflies. The caterpillar does not have a dictation or a say-so in the process that it has to undergo in order to become that butterfly. Some of us in life, we go through things in our life and we may not understand why, but it is a process. God takes us to a process for us to truly see the fulfillment that He has for us in our lives. So go through those different challenges. Go through, yes, some of the bumps and the bruises, but there will come a point in time that you will fly over those situations. You may once be crawling. You may once be, down in the dirt, but God will allow you to soar. He will allow you to fly. You will have those beautiful wings. God has created us in His image and in His likeness. And we have to recognize that when God creates us, He creates us as spirit first. And that is so awesome to understand that God created a situation and placed us in the midst of it. So everything that we need in that situation is within us. We have it, right? There was something that she said, and I had to write this quote down, and I wanted to get it exactly the way that she said it, because I think it is so key to a lot of relationships that we may have. But she said, you can't, if your presence is not adding value, your absence will not be missed. So sometimes we may even stay in places longer than we need to. But if our presence is not adding value, then our absence will not be missed. That is like a Selah after you say that. You have to think. Think of where you're at. Think of, the confounds of relationships that you're in. Sometimes we're in places that maybe, God can move us on, and we have to be obedient to the voice of God. And one thing I also took away from that was, we have to walk in step with the Spirit. The Spirit of God knows the voice of God. The Spirit of God knows where we need to be, where God is leading us, where He is taking us. So we have to be okay with wherever we're at this moment, because we understand that it's not going to last always. One thing she also said was, you can't say that you're operating in the Spirit if you are not bearing fruit. So God desires for us to bear fruit. Every tree, that has been given. I love in the first book of Genesis, it talks about how each fruit will bear after its own kind. So if we are after God's own kind, if we are created in His Spirit, right? If we are created in His image and in His likeness, if we are Spirit first, then that means that we are going to bear the fruits of the Spirit. So I tell you, Pastor Lisette blessed us. Her video is circulating Facebook. So if you have the opportunity to watch it, Hope Worship Center is the ministry that she pastors, and I believe that it is on there. If I have the opportunity, I will definitely share the video as well so that you can catch it in its entirety. But we had, again, a phenomenal time. Women walked away empowered. So many women have come up to me after the conference saying, Pastor, Bishop, oh my goodness, this was such a wonderful conference. It was so real. It was so relatable. You didn't feel, in a sense, stuffy. You could be transparent. You could be yourself. And that was one thing that I really spoke about from the very beginning. I said, be transparent with you. Sometimes it's difficult for us to be transparent with other people because we have not been transparent with ourselves. And once we are transparent with ourselves and recognize where we're at and where we need to be, we'll be all right. All right. So then we had Professor Rashida Cruz of Monmouth University talking about business influence. And she gave us so many wonderful tips. But I love how she started off because she pretty much blended her spirituality also with the business. And she started speaking to us about our gifts and our abilities and what God has placed within inside of us. And she did a demonstration. She had some bags and she had the women write down, I believe it was a couple of things or three, gifts that we had or certain abilities or talents. Because she said, these talents are what we are born with. And so she had us write them down and put them in a bag. And so to recognize that God has gifted us with so much. God has birthed, a lot of things within our lives, and it's just really walking out in them. So she was telling us about the 4 letters of our personality. She gave us a different a website to go to find this out. She was a bag of resources, I would like to say. I don't know if anybody is here on live that was at the empowerment conference, but please drop us some reviews on Woman Developed page. Tell us what you walked away with. Tell us your experience. We love to hear from you concerning these things. But she was a wealth of information. She shared with us how we ought to go about starting a business. First, of course, developing that name, the different disciplines that are needed when you talk about an attorney, a CPA, a bookkeeper, all of these different things, doing your research, also delegating where you need to. Some things you may not be able to do, but guess what? There's somebody out there that knows how to do it. So, we have these resources at our fingertips and we just have to utilize them. Many of us, we want to start businesses. Many of us want to go out and do things. She said, hey, check your credit. Make sure that, that you are good on that avenue. So keep your credit limits also minimal that she talked about. Don't, run your credit up. We may have a credit card of $10,000 and we say, hey, I got $10,000. But guess what? You're at risk if you run that credit card up to its limit. So, knowing all of these different things will also help you as you move forward in what God is calling you to do. This is just a recap. She also spoke about our social media platforms, right? If you have a business, keep it strictly business. Don't have all different types of things. Oh, I'm walking my dog. Okay, this is what I'm eating today. Keep it business. If you have a business page, keep it business. You can have a personal page where you're able to share all of those different things. But if you are business minded, make sure everything or every platform and handle that you have is related to that business. All right. Then for myself, I spoke about social influence, and social influence, as we've learned that there are several types of social influence. We had the conformity, we had the compliance, and we had the obedience. And a lot of times we fall in the category of conformity, where we shift and we change our attitudes and our behaviors because of the pressures of others. So sometimes we do not move forward because of what others think and what others are saying. We have fears and all of those different things. And then sometimes we, comply. I started off when I reached the platform and I said, hey, everybody raise your hands in the air and wave them like you just don't care. And the whole room did it and we were laughing and it was an exciting time. And I said, see, we all complied and we didn't know why we were doing it, but we did it. Some of us waved our hands before it was asked. Why? Because we have past experiences in that. So sometimes we will conform or we will comply or even be obedient to certain things that we don't have no clue why we're doing it. And sometimes that's what happens with social influence. We find ourselves doing things that we have no recourse or no understanding as to why we are doing what we're doing. So there was a demonstration that I gave. There was an exercise, if you will, and then we had a sheet of paper. And I said, put a box and write your name in it. Sometimes we are boxed in with certain things and we are afraid to come outside of that box. God never called us to live inside of the box. We create the limitations that we see in our lives. We limit ourselves as to how far we can go. We limit ourselves to how much we can succeed. We limit ourselves as to how much we will forgive or trust. And so we place 4 things that are keeping us housed in that box. And then afterwards, we took the box away, but those things were still there. So just because you come outside the box doesn't mean that the fears leave. It doesn't mean that people's opinions will stop. They will still be there, but how are you going to deal with them? So God strengthens us from the inside out. And I tell you, everything tied in from Pastor Lisette to Professor Cruz, as well as to myself. Hey, the Spirit first. The Spirit of God first. If He is our solid foundation, if we are sensitive to His voice, we're going to bear that fruit. We're going to allow the talents and the gifts that God has placed within us come out. We're going to live in it. And guess what? We're not going to be bound by the limitations that seemingly are set in the world, but that we are really going to take, the action that God calls us to take, that we are going to be fortified. We're going to be strengthened. We're going to be empowered, and we're going to live on purpose. God created us with purpose, on purpose, and for a purpose, right? That's what Pastor Lisette was letting us know, that we are created with a purpose, on purpose, and for purpose. So when we recognize that, there is nothing that can hold us back. I want to share this last thing. I think this was just so phenomenal as to how even God gave it to me. So each lady was seated at a table. I don't forgot how many women were seated at a table, but the table markers were not with numbers. They were with, names like unique and overcomer and fierce and authentic and creative and things of that nature, to let us know that God has called us to be these things. God has called us as a woman developed. And this was something that I shared. And I just want to take a moment to say this, because some of you may not necessarily know the vision or the mission of Woman Developed. But I'm here to say that Woman Developed has been created, of course, and founded by the Holy Spirit. And He used me as a willing vessel to bring her forth. But Woman Developed, of course, objective mission is to truly help women in their uniqueness. We want to help you develop. But I went through a certain situation in my life where I just felt like all hope was lost, that this is the end for me. I don't know where I'm going to go from here. And I just wanted to end it all. But God reminded me that I have something within. So guess what? Don't look at your problems. Don't look at your situations. Some of you may go through things in your life and it just seems like I can't take another thing. If something else is put on my plate, I'm going to break. If something else goes wrong, I can't handle it. So I was at that point, and God said, look within yourself. On the outside, you may not find it, but I can guarantee you, if you look within, you're going to find exactly what you need. And that's what I did. I looked within and I found this fully developed woman. That's where you have woman developed, singular. Woman developed, I found the peace that I needed. It was on the inside. The joy that I needed, it was on the inside. The fearlessness that I needed was on the inside. The confidence, the courageousness, all of those different things that God has made up within Himself, He put it within me. So when I recognized that, I said, you know what? I am a woman developed. And when you recognize that, you are a woman developed. Some would ask, why is it not women developed, as in corporate or plural? But see, we link ourselves, or we group ourselves so much in a corporateness that we forget our individuality. We forget our own individual uniqueness. So woman developed means that you are unique within yourself. You have some specifics that God has created within you. There is a uniqueness that God birthed within you, and you have to locate it. Now, sometimes, as I talked about with the social influence, we shy away and we fall in line, so no one gets to see you. Sometimes we are so afraid of what other people will think about us that we are not genuinely ourselves, or we're not authentic, but God created us as one man. Right? And so when you recognize that, you are able to now dig in and discover who you are. And when you discover who you are, then you can develop in that confidence. You can develop in who God has called you to be. It's all about the development and growth process. Now, I said, and this is, I'm going into another video or I'm going into something else, but I think it's so important to hear this, even when I talk about the empowerment conference, that we all have a potential. But that potential left just in the state of potential, it will never develop. So we will see ourselves, living life with just a potential, but it not being fulfilled. In order for us to truly see the fulfillment of God, we have to be developed. We have to recognize who we are. As we discover it, God says, okay, now move in the process. Move in the process. That's where we become those butterflies. That's where we begin to fly. So we don't want to just be left at that stage of a caterpillar, but we have to go through the process. You cannot determine the process. I always state that you cannot forego the process. You have to go through it. We all have a story in our life to tell. And I talk about that acronym, TELL. TELL, trust the process, embrace the journey, learn the lessons, and live the life. That's what God calls us to do. Trust his process. Where he is leading us, he will never lead us astray. He will always be with us. He will never leave us nor forsake us, right? We do not have to be discouraged nor dismayed because he's with us wherever we go. We can embrace the journey because yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I don't have to fear any evil. Right? Because God is there with us. Then we can learn those lessons. We can take something away from everything that we have been through, every heartache, every pain, every disappointment, everything we can learn from. When we begin to look at life's obstacles as learning lessons, then we will grow. So whatever it is that you find yourself in right now, within this day, within this week, or hey, it could have been last week and you're still, harboring it, learn from it. Learn from it, put it to use, and keep moving. And then guess what? Live the life. God said that I came that you would have life and that you would live it in its abundance. So God desires for us to live an abundant life. And I pray that you will live that life. So again, please, for those of you who have been blessed by Women Developed thus far, please leave us some reviews on our page. We want to hear from you. It is so encouraging when you put something together, believe it or not, and you begin to hear that people walked away blessed, that you hear that people walked away being empowered, that people walked away with insight, that people walked away. And I tell you, the speakers that we had this past Saturday, they were handpicked by God. And I know that. Why? Because I've been getting phone calls. I've been getting inboxes, videos. Thank you, Anita Dean, for leaving that video. Hey, she was empowered. So many others of you. I thank you for speaking to me. But guess what? They out there also need to hear. So stay tuned because Women Develop will be having some great things that will be coming up. And as I stated, it will be out the box because we need to touch the hearts and lives of women in a real, relatable way. God is our spirit. God is the one who's leading us. We are walking in step with the Spirit of God. Why? Because God has called us to do it. Amen. And he has empowered us to live the life that we need to live here on earth. And we're going to bear as much fruit as he calls us to bear. I love you so much. May you have a blessed day, prosperous day, and I'll see you again this week. I love you all. God bless.